I am here with David Lyon. Thank you so much for taking a few minutes out of your day to share some of your wisdom, some of your magic with us. And I just want to start off by asking you, how are you doing today?
I'm doing amazing. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Fabulous. So I want to dive right in and get to the nitty gritty with you. Can you share with us a little bit about your journey and the reality that you've created and that is your day-to-day life now?
Yeah, sure. So the short story is my path actually started off as a magician doing street, nothing to do with coaching or helping people in the way that is formally or commonly seen. But when I was 16, I became a magician. And so from a young age, my interest wasn't purpose or career at the time. It was actually just wanting to connect with people. I just wanted to find friends because I was a pretty insecure and lonely kid. And what I ended up discovering through becoming a magician was that as I started to perform for people and blow people away, I just started to become this magnet where I would attract friends, opportunities, bookings, and things of that nature. And very quickly started to blow up into a certain kind of success. I was performing on TV, my YouTube channel blew up. I was performing for celebrities such as Drake and a few others. And what that taught me during that time was a certain kind of formula that I didn't know I was going to need later on in life, which was simply the idea of we could live our lives and attract the wealth of our lives purely through having fun, purely through acting on our inspirations, purely through acting on our passions, and that it just requires a deep level of courage and humility to go in that direction. That's how my path started in terms of learning how to live in a very soul aligned way. And yeah, and eventually it just translated into my evolution when I finally got into helping people and hypnosis and psychic readings and things of that nature. I still applied the same kind of energy to it. My exploration was always like, where does wealth meet ease? A lot of people tell you like you got to work hard for what you want and you got to grind and things of that nature, but that never felt good to me. It would cause me stress, it would cause me anxiety. And for me, those were my energetic messengers saying I'm not doing something in my soul's way. Very quickly, even as I was getting into the business world, I just learned to apply what I learned as a street magician into all areas of my life, which is to simply move through intuition and inspiration and joy, and so on and so forth.
Ooh, you touch on a really great point there that for you, stress was like a red flag.
Mhm.
Hey, you're doing something in a way that is in alignment with who I am
Yeah,
authentically and intrinsically. So, can you share a little bit with us about number one, how do you notice those red flags? How are you attuning
mm.
to see and perceive that? And how do you go about, quote unquote, figuring out what is the aligned way for you?
Great questions. For me personally, my highest priority or priorities in life are joy, excitement, passion, and feeling good from a soul level. And I emphasize on a soul level because some people be like, oh, feeling good is going and partying and doing drugs. To me, when I say feeling good on a soul level, I mean things that feel expansive, that literally light my soul up. And so, because my priorities are joy and things of that nature, I'm very sensitive to anything that's not that. And and so as I would navigate myself through life, anytime I would experience things such as stress or anxiety, when I would sit with myself and ask myself what the message of this is, that's where I learned very quickly that it's just a messenger saying, hey, your soul's trying to go this way, your mind's trying to bring you this way. And so it's causing stress in your body, it's causing anxiety. So realign with your soul's direction, which of course can be easier said than done. It's always simple, but not necessarily always easy. And but that's essentially, the formula that I see. as far as like how to live your life from moment to moment is one, if you understand the value of joy and excitement, and we can get into that after if you'd like. But in short, those energies, joy, excitement, passion, inspiration, are the energies of our higher self, the energies of our best self, our most successful self, whatever label people want to use. And so I understood from a young age that by acting on those energies, so in every moment, there's a number of things we could choose to focus on. If we simply choose to focus on the direction that contains the highest amount of joy, highest excitement, the direction that lights us up the most, and take it as far as we could take it to the best of our ability, remaining in a positive state with, as one of, there's a teacher named Bashar, he always says, taking it as far as you can with no insistence on the outcome. And you keep doing that, you end up finding yourself in this flow of just magic and synchronicity and abundance without having to try. So it's instead of you having to figure things out, you tune into where things are figured out for you. And it's a beautiful realization to come to when you get to realize, oh, all I have to do is focus on my joy. All I have to do is focus on my inspirations and intuitions. And my mind's going to come in and go, oh, but you're not being responsible, or you need to be doing this. But to recognize that when you feel into the mind, when you feel into that texture coming up, it feels like rigidity. And then that's where you have to ask yourself, do I want to build my reality from fear and rigidity? Or do I want to build my reality from these feelings and flavors of joy and inspiration? Because that's actually, when I imagine my dream life, that's what it's built out of, right? For me, it was both intuitive and logical.
Yeah, it makes complete sense to me. But for some reason, so many people are focused on if I can create blank, insert seven-figure business, insert 100-person team, so on and so forth, then I will have XYZ. And what it sounds like you're saying, and I also align and resonate with, is that actually, if we allow ourselves to focus on and create the feeling that we ultimately want, but we create it now and follow that, then yes, the seven-figure business or the 100-person team or whatever, it might unfold, but you're not even having to wait until, who knows how long in order to experience that. So when you are saying that, you bring up the word magic, and of course you're going to use that word. You're a magician in the most literal sense of the term. Can you share a little bit about some of the magic that you've been able to witness as a result of following this paradigm, really?
Oh man, I feel like it's my whole life. So what I'll touch on first, and I think what's important for people to know is because you spoke about people are saying how they want the seven-figure business with the 100-person team, and because they think that's what they need. And it's a fair assumption, but if you're really honest with yourself, you have no idea what you need. I have no idea what I need on a grand level. Food, water, sure. But if we're honest with ourselves, we don't know what we actually need in order to make our dreams come true, to use that language. We don't know that we might need to meet that person who's going to end up becoming our partner, who takes the load off our table and is like, oh, I love to do the things that you hate, and do those things for us. And so if we can get honest enough with ourselves to recognize that we don't completely know what we need, then we can start to tune into something different. And then this is where I like to present the idea and the truth that our mind is only designed to know two things, right? It's only designed to know how things are happening and how things have happened. It's not designed to know how things are going to happen. So trying to figure out what you need or trying to figure out how things are going to happen is only going to cause stress and frustration and anxiety and things of that nature. On the other hand, if we simply look back on our lives, and it doesn't matter if you're coming from a spiritual perspective or not, but if we simply look back on our lives, you'll see that all the most amazing things that have come to you, be it, it could be your lover, it can be certain opportunities, they've all come coincidentally. They've all come through synchronicity. It was always right place, right time. It was something that was figured out for you, right? There's a certain intelligence of magic. To come back to the question of magic, there's a certain, what I call magic, that just brings you what you need when you need it, not a moment later and not a moment too soon. So for me, the question becomes, how do we tune into that magic? How do we tune into that synchronicity that figures things out for us? And that's what I was sharing as far as like prioritizing joy. And so examples of that in my life, oh man, I feel like I could go anywhere. One of the most prominent examples was when I was originally living in Montreal. I'm living in Montreal again, but when I was, it's where I'm from. But when I was younger, back in 2016, I had what most people would call the perfect life. I had a great business, a great investor, a great girlfriend, great house, all the things. And I just got to this point in my life where I realized everything I was doing because I was good at, but I didn't feel a sense of calling anymore. I didn't feel lit by my life anymore. It just felt, okay, I'm doing things because I'm good at them. And when I sat with myself and I noticed this, I'm like, okay, let me meditate for a second. What is my calling? The first feeling I felt, for whatever reason, was go to California. And mind you, I knew nothing about California. It could have said go to Antarctica. It was literally as random as that to me at that time. I knew nothing about it. And but all I did feel was I felt a sense of expansion in that direction, and I felt a sense of adventure, and oh, I like that feeling. And so I told myself, I'm like, okay, if I still have this feeling in 3 days, I'm gonna buy myself a, I'm gonna let go of absolutely everything, and I'll get myself a one-way ticket and go to Cali. And sure enough, 3 days later, that's exactly what happened. The feeling got stronger. I let go of my girl, my house, my investor, my business, everything, my friends, everything. And not knowing how it was going to happen, but because I acted on that energy of inspiration, of what I'm calling the lighter feeling, the magic, I just found myself when I took that one-way ticket in this flow of everything being given to me of what I needed, new business partners. All of a sudden, I met a marketer who joined my team, and I met this person and that person. And literally everything was handed to me on a silver platter. And that's when I truly understood the meaning of what I call living magic, which for me is the opposite of living struggle. So that's just like one of many examples of how magic has unfolded for me and just given me what I need, all the puzzle pieces I need, so that all I need to do is just focus on my shine, just focusing on showing up, being in my gifts, living my genius, and having.
I love it. It's so interesting. You bring up a point that for you, of course, now looking back on it, makes so much sense. But I'm sure in the moment it was not easy to look at the possibility of, in order to step into what is expansive for me, I'm going to need to let go and release some things that are shaping my identity, who I believe I am, right? Like this certain kind of entrepreneur, this kind of person that's in a specific relationship, so on and so forth. And I completely had that experience. Not that I had to let go of my husband. Ultimately, I didn't have to. But on my own journey, it was like a 5 year process of following in this way. And it was only when I finally got to this point where I was like, I literally said out loud, ancestors, spirits, whoever is walking with me, I will do anything. And I meant
Mm,
it. Like it was a deep, I will do anything. Whatever this means, I have to let go of. It is that valuable to me
mm,
that I will. And I was blessed in that actually stepping into my calling didn't require me to release some of those things, but it did require me to take a big, brave, courageous leap. So, how do you tap into your bravery again and again?
The honest answer is, for me, there's no other choice. It's I've had practice with this at a younger age. And this goes back to me becoming a magician. Like I said, I was the kid who was heavily bullied and insecure and rejected and invisible. And when I became a magician, I had this moment where I wanted to perform for people for the first time. And I'd been practicing for a really long time, but I was afraid to perform for real people because I'm like, what if I mess up and I end up being the guy who wanted to be a magician and then I get bullied some more? And so all my biggest fears and traumas were in my face. And it took me a long time to build the courage to take that leap of faith, to act on the thing that was calling me forth. And by a long time, I mean like a good year. But eventually, what happened is I got to this place where the pain of living in the hamster wheel of the same life was way greater than my fear of what might happen if I actually take this. And so once that happened, once I got fed up of the hamster wheel and I recognized nothing's going to change unless I change, I did it and things went magically well. And then I started to build that muscle. I started to realize that every time those moments show up, anytime I'm experiencing that level of fear, it's actually my greatest joys and excitements wanting to happen, but I'm experiencing it through the limited definitions of my mind. So that's why I'm experiencing it as fear. It's like when the musical artist is about to go on stage for the first time and they feel nervous and they get the frights, but the second they go on, it just all that nervousness explodes into excitement and passion and joy. It's just because it's getting filtered through these limited definitions in our mind. And because I just exercised that so much and I made friends with my fear, I recognize fear as just a messenger saying, hey, this way. Because there's a trick that I like to reflect to people, especially in moments of deep fear when it requires a leap of faith. So if someone listening to this now has a calling to go in a certain direction, but they feel a great amount of fear, what most people will do is they're going to stop at the fear. They're going to go, oh, I'm afraid, and they'll back down. What I'd suggest is take a second to feel the fear, but instead of stopping and backing down at the fear, feel beyond the fear. Feel what's on the other side of the fear, and notice if it feels expansive. Notice if it feels freeing. Notice if it feels magical, or if it genuinely feels dreadful and is a tragedy. And I guarantee that if you feel beyond it, if it's your soul's direction, if it's something that lights you up, you're going to feel the expansiveness. So that's your way of getting in touch with your inner GPS and knowing that, okay, this is a great direction. You're not even taking a guess. You're feeling the textures of what's present in that reality. If you go in that direction, it will be more expansive and abundant and free. So that's what it is for me. For me, there's no other choice because I live for the expansion of my soul.
Yes. I just sometimes sit and imagine, just daydream about what would the world be like if that was our normal mode of operation. If that was the common consciousness in humanity, what would we be creating? What would be the level of connection? What would be the real life magic that we were co-creating together? And when I speak about the new paradigm and really where we're going in in business, but also in just humanity, I know that it's going to start, for me, I perceive that it's starting with leaders like yourself who are collaborating and connecting with others who also have big enough balls, for lack of a better term, or actually maybe strong enough wombs.
I was wondering how you were going to flip it.
But that really is, I see that's where it starts, and we're in that age, we're in that moment right now. David, before I let you go, I do want to ask you one question because you had pointed to
Mm,
the value of joy.
mm.
And you now, even in this last question, you were speaking to, for you, there's nothing more valuable than following what is expansive for you. What is the key takeaway that you would share with anyone watching this about the true value of this paradigm?
So for me, on some level, it's just math. It's just spiritual math, if you want to call it that. And I'll explain what I mean by that. If you were to imagine, if you take a moment to imagine, whoever's listening to this, if you imagine your dream self, your ideal reality, where you're looking to go in life, and you imagine that you and how that you feels and lives and the kind of energies that are present in that reality of your dream life, take a second to notice the textures. Notice that you'll feel the energies of expansiveness. You feel alive, you feel free, you feel joyful, you feel fun, you feel all these great flavors that I call the magical feelings. And I guarantee that what you don't feel is stress and anxiety and frustration and rigidity and those feelings, right? Our reality, the feelings that you act on are is the reality that you're building towards. That's why it's just math. There's there's a great spiritual equation that was once taught to me by a Kabbalah mentor I had back in the day, where he's like, oh, do you know the great spiritual equation? I'm like, no, what is that? I'm picturing like E equals MC squared and stuff like that. And he's like, oh, you have to know the great spiritual equation. The great spiritual equation is be plus do equals have. And I was just like, it was so simple that it just blew my mind as far as being plus doing equals having and not the other way around. So many people are focused on what do I need to do? What do I need to do? What do I need to do? But you're not human doings, right? You're human beings. It's your state of being that informs the ideas that pop in your head and the actions you're going to take. So, in other words, if you're in a state of being of not good enough, life is not good enough, you're going to act from a not good enough space and attract not good enough things. Everything's going to have that texture of not good enough, even if you have millions of dollars. That's why there are miserable millionaires, right? On the other hand, if you're in a state of gratitude, of perfection, of aliveness, of joy, you're going to have thoughts and inspirations and actions that to act on that equal that same kind of reality. So this is why I reflect to people just as a math, just as a logical math. And you could look back in your past and see where this is true. When you imagine your dream self, if you want, take a pen and paper, write down all the feelings that you feel of that self, the expansiveness, the freedom, the so on and so forth, which I'm going to call the magical feelings. The idea then becomes that if you want to weave your way or dance your way into that reality, you have to act on those feelings. On those feelings. You have to build brick by brick your reality with those feelings. And anytime you're acting on frustration, so you might be at the computer like, oh, I have to get this done. This is actually a true story from my life. Years ago, I woke up, and because of the momentum built up in my mind, I woke up, I'm like, okay, I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to do this, I have to do that. That's the mind. And then I stopped myself and I was like, okay, wait a sec. That's what my mind is saying. What do I feel like doing on a soul level? Again, what feels expansive, what feels good. And I was like, honestly, I just feel like getting a bowl of cereal and watching an episode of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. That was my feeling. And then my mind kicked in. It's like, no, that's irresponsible. You have deadlines, you have clients, you have emails. You have to do this. But notice the feeling of that. I said, you know what? I'm going to practice what I preach. I know what my mind is saying. I acknowledge it. I'm going to listen to the feeling. So let's just say my vibration started off over here. I got my bowl of cereal, put on Fresh Prince, had some good laughs, it brought some joy in my body. And then my vibration went from here to here. And then I asked myself, I'm like, okay, now what do I feel like doing? And I was like, well, now I really don't feel like doing my work. I want to watch another episode. That's irresponsible, yada, yada, yada. No, I'm going to listen to my soul. Watch another episode. Joy, vibration went from here to here. Now, what do I feel like doing? It's like, well, you know what? Now I actually just feel like going for a walk. It's a nice day outside. We're in Montreal. We don't get much sun. I want to go for a walk, even if it's not work. So I listen to myself. I go on that walk and I'm taking a nice walk through the park. It's slow. The sun's on my face. I'm feeling gratitude. I'm like, oh, nice exhale. And my vibration is going from here to here. And eventually, I find myself in the vibrational vicinity of where inspiration lives. And so all of a sudden, inspiration just dropped in my mind spontaneously, but I was just on the right radio station, so to speak. And it was just like this aha moment of, oh, that's how I could do what I have to do. And now all of a sudden, I felt inspired to do my work, but instead of it feeling like I have to, it felt like I feel like. So now I got my work done more effectively, more efficiently, and more effortlessly without having to push myself. I was pulled. And so that's really the formula as to how this works. It's feel like versus have to. It's pay attention to the energies of your higher self, your dream self, and build from those energies and let it be a practice. It's what I prescribe to people is a 7-day diet. A 7-day diet of just excitement and joy and all the feelings that light you up, to always move towards a lighter feeling. All right. And the reason why I say 7 days is because I love the idea or truth or metaphor of God creating the world in 7 days. For me, that says it takes 7 days to create a whole new reality and world for yourself. You know, and Jay-Z says, difficult takes a day, impossible takes a week. So it takes 7 days to create the impossible for yourself. So what I'm inviting you to do is just for 7 days. You've been trying something for a really long time. If you're listening to this, you've been trying a certain way for a really long time, and maybe it hasn't been working, or maybe it has been. But for 7 days, give yourself an excitement diet. If it is not your highest excitement, if it is not your highest truth, if it does not light you up, you don't do it. I don't care what it is. And your highest excitement might be, I want to take a nap. It might be, I want to work on this project. It might be, I want to go see the homies. Whatever it is, for 7 days, that's all you do, and you just see what happens. If you don't like it, go back. But I guarantee you, it will become your lifestyle because you're going to consciously dance with the magic of life. And there's no going back from that.
Drop mic. There's absolutely no going back. I love a 7-day diet. I have a similar sharing. I call it the day of nothing, where
Mm,
you allow yourself the space of one day to have like full permission to do nothing. And it's funny because there's been so much, I will say, propaganda around how difficult it has to be. And really, what you've shared, and also what I firmly believe in, is that it really is simple. However, the level of ease comes with number one, practice.
mhm,
Number two, also that courage to really just allow for it to happen.
mhm,
And three, that you actually receive. The receiving piece, being open to feeling expansive instead of your identity to I'm a hard worker, right? Is something to be said for itself. So,
absolutely.
yes, thank you absolutely so much, David. This was incredibly epic. I know that everyone seeing this is going to get so much value from this, especially if they take you up on the 7-day diet and actually integrate that into their life
Mhm.
and just approach it with the perspective of play. Just see.
That is the perfect reflection you could have given. It's absolutely approach it from an energy of play as opposed to seriousness and rigidity, and you're just going to open yourself up to more. I'm happy you said that.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much once again for taking some time with us,
My
and
pleasure.
I will be seeing you soon.
Awesome. Thank you, Makosi.